how do you put together that sales experience so that someone who's thinking about the team they want to hire, whether it be you or somebody else, I want them to be equipped to know whether they're talking to the right person, because not all sales teams are right for everybody. And that's one of the things I've discovered after doing God knows how many millions on the phone is we'd have a certain product line and I would literally tell Joe, who was managing my sales teams, and I would say, that's the right team for this product line for the following set of reasons. And I think if we can, through this interview, equip people to better validate the person they're talking to, man, that's a service to them.
There's two things that come to mind. One is onboarding and integration. Because you said, hey, because I know those people. I know the teams out there that are like, all we need is a login and a Zoom, branded email, we'll be selling by tomorrow. And to me, it's so out of alignment, because I'm like, that's not how we sell. And I will also say, because an expectation has been built because of those types of teams out there, where sometimes it's an objection for us when we work with a new client, where I'm like, hey, we need 3-4 weeks to be up and running. And they're like, whoa, like I wanted to go tomorrow. And I was like, you think you want to go tomorrow. You don't actually want to go tomorrow. And I'll tell you why. And so I'm going to talk about the onboarding and integration process. But right before I do, what you made me think of, Anik, is our talent acquisition process. Years ago, I said, you know what? If we cannot attract and retain top talent, we don't have a business model. So we're a recruiting and training first business. If we don't have top talent, we don't have a service, right? It all revolves around the sales reps themselves. Now, what we do, which is interesting, is that we treat our talent acquisition like customer acquisition. We put more emphasis on talent acquisition than most people put on customer acquisition. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it all starts with an ICP, but it's not an ideal client profile. It's an ideal candidate profile. We build hiring avatars in the same way that you would when you're trying to market, when you're looking for your ideal client. If we're looking for our ideal candidate, we want to do the same types of exercises. We want to have the same types of messaging. We want to have funnels and job descriptions that are attracting that right person, right? Getting the right initial indication of interest. And then aside from that, not like Anik said, not every salesperson is right for every business, is right for every offer. So I'll give you just one example that's a little bit more of a hyperbole, but it makes the point very clear, right? This is more of an exaggerated thing. But we had a very high-end executive coaching type of offer. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to answer this question, but the question is, well, should a 22-year-old kid wearing a hat jump on the phone to sell that deal? Probably not. Probably not. Now,
I've been on the phone with that 22-year-old kid.
You've been on the phone
with him,
and
it's
such a put-off. It is such a put-off. So literally that offer, what it called for was to have a team that was a lot more mature. The average age of that rep was much higher. The vernacular that they were able to use, which was much more sophisticated. The dress code. Yeah, dress code matters. We're taking calls on Zoom. They were wearing polos and button-ups, right? And that alone made some of them were wearing sports jackets, right? That alone changed everything because it was all perception on the call. And so it's so funny to me because like I have gone into businesses where they're selling a $50,000 consulting package to C-suite people and they got kids selling the deals. And so to Anik's point, like when we're working with a client, we are really understanding who their customer is and making sure that we find the sales talent that makes the most sense for that brand. The other thing that I think is a big mistake that people made is they overcorrect with what I just said there, where this is actually a pet peeve of mine that we train on constantly. You do not want your sales team to act like they are the expert if they're not. That is a fast way to kill deals because now you're being evaluated based on your rep's expertise. And even though they should, if they're working for us, they would be heavily trained on product knowledge because we go deep into that. If you're selling an offer, I'll make something up. If you're selling an example here, if you're selling an offer where it's a scaling program where this person is, it's their expert proprietary strategies and methodologies that they built over 30 years of scaling 8- and 9-figure businesses. A sales rep cannot, even if they have business experience, they can't try to take that on as a persona.
Hmm.
And so many times, going back to compliance, by the way, I've heard sales calls in other organizations where they're pretending like that's them. They're like, yeah, so I've been doing this for X, Y, Z. And I'm like, no, you haven't. You're a sales rep. And so what I think is much, much more effective is that what we share is we are not experts on the thing. We are experts on the program. And I can explain exactly how that goes, but we anchor all actual expertise to the facilitators and the subject matter expert. That's really important. If you're trying to sell as if you're the expert, you're going to really sacrifice conversion. Something that small can make a big difference, right?
I think that's such an important point, because we've been talking about this a lot lately, how the experts we watch winning in the current environment, in the trust deficit or the trust recession, as we call it,
yep,
are people whose marketing and sales shows instead of telling. It's a show, not tell approach.
Yep.
And it's a demonstration of expertise and what they do in their marketing and sales. But how do you do that in sales unless, as the expert, you just stay on the phone? And I think that's one of the things I'm really interested in that you just said is it's not the fast, quick flash in the pan of like throw sales reps, throw these high ticket closers, these hardcore closers on the phone and just ring people. It's actually building a sales team that has deep product knowledge and who is able to actually create paradigm shifts for your perfect customer through the questions they ask and the way they tailor their pitch. And so I'm guessing that in your guys' onboarding process, which is where I think you want to go next, that's a big part of what you do.
Yeah.
So what would you advise people? Like, what are you guys seeing as working on the field, out in the field, to help sales reps be able to demonstrate authority, demonstrate expertise without having to become 20-year veterans themselves? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, really good question. So first of all of our clients that we work with, or every rep that works for us, they have 2 training centers. They have our WFS training center, and they have the client's brand-specific training center for the offer that they're selling on. Right? Now, I will tell you this. We don't do any cross-selling. Right? That's a big thing that we do differently other than a lot of these sales agencies out there. We don't do any cross-selling for the sole purpose, the only purpose of the fact that it doesn't work. It's not effective, right? So a lot of these sales organizations are like, it's all first principles. We can sell anything. And it's easier from a capacity perspective because they don't need to be as stringent and as intentional about lead flow to capacity ratios. So they'll hire a sales rep to sell on 3 brands and they'll just kind of rotate them around. But like, here's the thing. Do I agree that with first principles to sales? Well, yeah. I mean, if you have me with sales experience selling something I don't know to somebody who's never sold anything in their life, I'll still probably sell it better. But I will never outsell that same version of myself with heavy product knowledge on that offer, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, but also no. And the second thing about that is there's no way that a rep, even if they're talented, can switch hats between all these different calls to different offers and different talk tracks and different avatars, and then do all of their pipeline management and follow-up in multiple different tech stacks. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not effective. And it sacrifices conversions and revenue for the clients, so we don't do it, right? Not to mention our not to be gimmicky or cute, but our positioning statement is we're your outsourced in-house sales team. And that speaks to the way that we built what we have. Because is it a third-party entity technically on paper? Yeah, of course it is. We're outsourced. However, we build it in a way where all of the benefits of having it in-house almost all still exist. In fact, it would be hard to find a difference because it's the same team. It's a dedicated team. You have full visibility, full transparency. Everything's built in your tech stack. You want to listen to a call, do it. You can pull anything that you want. You want to have a conversation with the sales rep? Let's make it happen. And then what we do, which segues into your question here, is we actually believe, and we have a dedicated call to this, connecting fulfillment to the sales team. It's either once a week or every other week. Sometimes it's just every other week. And that is where you really get those breakthroughs that you were just asking about. How do you get your reps to a point where they're able to demonstrate expertise and make those aha light bulb moments on the phones. And it really just it comes as a natural result of them truly understanding what happens in fulfillment. And I'll tell you what's interesting. The first time, we've been doing this for a while now, but the first time we really started doing that, we had so many sales reps hear from fulfillment something that they had heard a million times, and they go, you know what? I've heard that so many times, and it just made sense to me now what it actually means. So, like, it's not just about memorizing things about a program. It's having an understanding of how it works. Okay, so here's how we do it. Like I said, every rep has a sales training center, and then they have the client and the brand training center. By the way, even if you're wanting to do this in-house, you could do this. Here's the types of trainings we have. We have sales training. We have compliance training. That's not like a separate training center, but that's in the sales training. Then we have our process training. Then we have, on the client side, we have product knowledge training. But there's a next one that we built that is what you're asking about right now, which is called brand dynamics. What we realized is even if you study the product really well, each offer has certain intricacies and nuances to sell it really well, right? And so it's like situational questions, common scenarios that occur, how to actually present the program aligned with the pain points of the avatar, right? There's all of these things that we build in the training center, and then the call that we have with fulfillment is called the brand dynamics call. So it's integrating all of this knowledge into your sales team. Now, last thing I'll say on that, Richard, is, we call it onboarding and integration. Now, onboarding and integration, not onboarding. It used to be called onboarding. And the difference is this. Integration is actually an M&A term from mergers and acquisitions. And the concept is if one company buys another company, there's this whole concept called integration, right? Well, most acquisitions or mergers that fail, it happens because of poor integration, right? So without getting deep into an M&A discussion, here's an example of it. Is you buy a company because it was a great company and it was working well for all these reasons. They integrate it. They start making all of these changes, and now it doesn't work. Maybe it was a culture mismatch. Maybe they changed the things that were working well without knowing it. Well, as such a critical function of your business, a critical value engine being sales, we are fully integrated into your business. And so a big mistake that I would, if you never work with us, I would really caution you, if you're evaluating an outside external sales team, ask questions around how they would integrate, because if you just outsource and they're like, this is how we do it the same way every time, no matter what here, well, you could go down in revenue fast, right? You can go down in revenue fast. So we try to understand, and we go through a bunch of stuff. If they have an existing sales team, what was the comp plan? What were the incentives? What was the talk track? What were the close rates? What was the sales material they were using? What was the CRM? What were the playbooks? What were the expectations? What was the length of the calls? Was it 30 minutes or 15-minute triages? Like we have a whole checklist we go through, and in the first 30 days, every client is the same. Josh, do this as fast as you can. They all say the same thing. I say, hey, I respect that. I understand that's important. We're going to make almost no changes for the first 30 days, and we're observing and getting a deep understanding of why things work and what things don't. With that level of certainty and data, now we'll start rolling out all of the changes after the fact, and we're getting massive adoption to drive behavior with the sales team.